Hi, everybody. This is going to be the second part of my Michael Jackson astrological chart reading. It's late at night. I'm a little tired, so you'll have to bear with me here. I'm going to be talking about a few more things that I didn't get to in the last video that I wanted to mention because I think people might be interested in what MJ's chart has to say. All right, here we go. So here we are back at Michael Jackson's natal chart. One of the most interesting kind of things that I didn't mention last time because sometimes I talk and I get on a roll and forget, to mention various things. So one of the things I noticed that really stands out in his chart is that his ascendant, which is at 10 Pisces, as we talked about last time, is conjunct his moon. His natal moon is at 14 in Pisces. Each of the zodiac signs rules a different part of the body. And Pisces happens to rule the feet. And he was known, right? One of his signature dance moves, obviously, that he's known for is moonwalking, right? So here we have Pisces, which rules the feet, and the moon conjunct the feet, moonwalker. So there's your moonwalker aspect. I thought that was pretty cool. So it's literally written in his chart. And the ascendant, as I said in the last video, if you're just joining me and you haven't seen the first video that I did, you can go to my playlists and find the Michael Jackson astrology playlist and watch the first video because I talk about what all of these different angles mean. I'll probably go over some of that same stuff in this video because there will be people watching who won't watch the first video. So the ascendant is how you show up in the world. It's kind of like when you walk into a room, you are your sun sign. So whenever you're born, and in Michael's case, he was born on 29 August 1958, right, in Gary, Indiana at 7:33 p.m., which makes him born into the sign of Virgo because the sun was in Virgo when he was born, which is who you are, in your heart. It's your inner identity, and it's who you are behind closed doors. When you walk into a room full of people who've never met you before, they register the ascendant, okay? Because this is kind of like just how you show up in the world. So Michael Jackson shows up in the world as this Pisces person who is the moonwalker, right? The moon and the feet. If you put those into a simple equation, moon plus feet or feet plus moon, you have moonwalker, right? So that's a very kind of mundane, silly way to explain how he shows up in the world because it goes a lot deeper than that. And you know that if you watch the first video that I did. So yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was interesting. So the other thing that I kind of wanted to touch on was his relationships. A lot of people have speculated as to whether or not he was gay, was he straight, did he do these things that he was accused of, all of that. Um, so when we look at someone's sort of, I guess, sexual attraction, or, the types of things that they're just attracted to in love relationships, we always look to Venus. And Michael Jackson has Venus in Leo. So Venus in Leo is, Venus can represent a lot of different things. I mean, it can represent, in the astrology of your own chart, you. It can represent the types of things that you like in terms of, decor, right? That's a very mundane thing. But in terms of what do you like? What kind of environment do you like to be in? What kind of environment do you like to live in? What kind of assets, do you have a propensity toward, um, you know, um, saving or buying or gaining or whatever? But it can also indicate the types of people that you are sexually attracted to. Okay. So, what's interesting about Michael Jackson's Venus is that it's attached to Uranus. And Uranus is the modern ruler of Aquarius. Uranus is associated with differences, shock. It's kind of like the shock value planet, right? Whenever I think of Uranus in this way, in the terms of, if it's conjunct a planet in your chart, what does it mean for relationships? Uranus, I always go back to my teen years, because it's when we are in our teen years that we're kind of most Uranian. We push against, when we're discovering ourselves and what we like and what we don't like. We tend to, many of us anyway, push against the norms, right? And some of us do this more than others, depending on the kind of environment that you grow up in. I know myself, I definitely did this. I dressed very differently than the way that I was raised to, because I knew that it was shocking, and that's kind of what I felt comfortable doing. I was challenging the norms. So Uranus challenges the norms. That's kind of the point that I wanted to get across. So when you have Uranus, excuse me, conjunct Venus, what does it mean for intimate relationships? What does it mean in terms of, in a man's chart? Michael Jackson was a man. What does it mean for the type of people that he was attracted to? My personal kind of understanding of him, and because I'm a fan, I've watched a lot of videos and interviews and whatnot with people who knew him in some intimate capacity. And I don't mean sexually, I just mean, bodyguards and stuff like that. He very likely, most likely was not gay. He said himself that he was not gay. Everybody who knew him in a close capacity also said that he was not gay. I think in this sense, being in Leo, Venus being in Leo, the image that I get here, Leos are known for kind of being in the spotlight. They're known for being, they're a fire sign. They're ruled by the sun. They're known for big things. It's kind of like the Texas of the zodiac signs, right? I think of, with Venus and Leo, I think of like women, who have kind of big hair, or very sexy manes like the lion's mane. They're like women with kind of this kind of lion's mane hair of some kind. Um, so there's that in terms of like what he was physically attracted to. But the thing that I haven't really touched on with regards to all of this is the fact that this is all of these kind of planets down here are located in his sixth house. Okay. So what does the sixth house being in Leo mean? Well, the sixth house um, rules your daily kind of routine. It rules your daily life. It rules the work that you do on a daily basis. It also rules your subordinates. So if you are in any kind of a position of power, which Michael was, it rules the types of people that you're likely to hire under you, okay, or employ, or help in some way. The sixth house also rules health. Now, astrology is very old. I gravitate to it because it has a longer sort of proven track record in history than other forms of spiritual kind of um, divination or that kind of thing, like tarot. A lot of people want to say that tarot has existed since the ancient Egyptians, but there's absolutely no proof to that whatsoever. So I digress. But, basically, the thing that I wanted to say about that was that in ancient astrology, the sixth house, which is where he has all this stuff, is historically thought of as the house of bad fortune, or one of the houses of bad fortune. So I don't really like those kinds of definitions. And I do think that they are, antiquated, obviously, but there is some truth to that, in the sense that if you have Venus, for instance, in this house, Venus can rule the body, it can rule the physical body, it rules your own beauty, how you show up in the world, but it also rules like what you're attracted to, right? So the sixth house, being the house of daily work, daily environment, daily routine, health, physical health, that kind of thing. It's interesting because, my guess would be that he met women that he was attracted to and probably wanting to be in an intimate relationship with, um, while doing his daily activities, while doing his daily work. But being in Leo, he was a performer. So probably, Leo can also signify like hairdressers, people who do makeup, any kind of anybody who kind of fits into that kind of theatrical kind of performing arts like sector, right? Or music. And we know that there have been a lot of sort of linkages to him, to between him and people that he did perform with on different occasions, right? So the other thing about Uranus being conjunct his Venus that I think is interesting, and my intuition is telling me that he was attracted to women who are a little older than him. It's an unconventional situation. It's an unconventional sort of relationship. It's something that I think he probably did keep kind of under wraps, mostly because he was a private person. He's got a lot going on in this part of his chart, which tells me that he was a private person. If you have a lot of planets on the top, it kind of indicates that you're more of an outgoing individual and you don't mind kind of um, spilling the beans and just kind of being out there, right, with all your stuff in your life. But he was actually very private. His sun and his Juno is an asteroid that indicates sort of the marriage partner or the type of person that you end up with, right? His Juno, his Sun, his Pluto, his part of fortune, Mercury, Venus, Uranus, Mars, his moon, they're all sort of down here. So he was a very private person, even in his daily life. He wanted to keep his daily life private, because he was so well known. His Jupiter's up here at 28 degrees, the degree of household name status, right? So so basically, he wanted to keep his relationships private, and he did. So, why did we never see him with people aside from Lisa Marie Presley and stuff like that? Well, there are some reasons for that. And part of the reason is because, Saturn being up here conjunct his midheaven, the midheaven rules kind of your public reputation, your vocational legacy, what you're known for, right? Your work in the world. Well, his Saturn actually squares his seventh house of intimate relationships. So, and not only does it square his seventh house of intimate relationships, but it squares his natal Ceres. And Ceres in ancient mythology is she's a goddess. She's the mother of Persephone. And her daughter, she's known as, a mother goddess, right? So she's always associated with mothering. She's associated with grains and wheat and mothering and being like, the best ideal mother that you can be. So she has a nurturing aspect. But her daughter, who she loved very much, Persephone, was kidnapped by Pluto. And she was heartbroken over this because Pluto abducted her daughter and took her to the underworld. So she was effectively kidnapped, and Ceres, the mother, was left absolutely heartbroken. And it's said in mythology that all of the fields, dried up and the flowers wilted and things like that, because she was just so heartbroken over losing her daughter. So there's also an element of abduction, okay, with Ceres. So at once she's nurturing, but on the other hand, there's this element of loss, okay, to it. And that is what his Saturn is squaring in Michael's natal chart. What does this mean? Well, it means that the challenges that he faced in his work, particularly around his reputation, okay, but particularly also just how busy he was, traveling internationally all the time and what have you. A squaring aspect is very challenging. It's very difficult, and it creates tension. So let's say hypothetically, just to get a point across here, Michael meets someone that he likes very much. She's unconventional. It's an unconventional situation, but he's very happy with it. His career, I really feel, would inevitably always kind of create problems for him in this department of the seventh house of intimate partnerships, because while he would be very happy and feeling very nurtured, by certain women. Um, he and they probably, because of his career and the way it was, because of always having to be hounded in the public eye, felt an element of kidnapping or abandonment or loss. Okay. So I would say that's pretty likely that part of the reason why his relationships, why he had a lot of different relationships um, that didn't really kind of last in the public eye wasn't because he didn't want to necessarily. It was because they were just constantly challenged. And I think that it created problems and tension with the women who wanted him to be there more, right? I mean, he wasn't capable of being nurturing to them. He wasn't able to receive the nurturing from them because he was so busy and, you know, also experiencing emotional challenges around the career stuff because his Saturn also squares his moon. Okay. So Saturn squaring your moon is also a difficult aspect because it's a square. Squares are really, really tough. Now, that's not to say that you can't work through them and get over them, because you can, but that is to say that he probably went through bouts of extreme loneliness and depression. There's a little bit of a hint of the depression stuff up here with the Chiron in the 12th house as well. Um, and my guess would be that, it was just very emotionally challenging for him to maintain relationships, not because he didn't want to, but because his career literally abducted him from everything else. Okay. Um, what else is interesting about that is I added Persephone, which is another little asteroid, right? Persephone is the daughter of Ceres. So I added Persephone down here. I didn't know she was down here, but I added the asteroid to the chart and it showed up here. And it's pretty interesting to me that her daughter is down here in his sixth house of daily work, okay, which tells me again that um, he probably felt, and the people around him who he was involved with in relationships probably felt, you know, that he had been just kind of kidnapped from their lives whenever his career kind of called. And that's pretty true. He had to deal with a lot on a daily basis, a lot, a lot, a lot. And so the daughter of Persephone goes to the underworld. Well, in this chart, Persephone's down here, which tells me that there's an element of underworldliness to this house for him. So, which is also intensified by the fact that Pluto, who is the abductor, is in this house as well. Okay. So, um, the sense I'm getting here is kind of like probably the way people felt about him on an intimate relationship level is like, you have the power to change the situation. Why don't you? So they probably felt like, well, this is all happening because of you. It's happening because of like who you are. Um, but Persephone being down here so close to Uranus as well, also tells me that um, if something was happening and was going good in his life and he was able to provide and receive the nurturing here from whoever he was involved with, um, there would just be weird circumstances that would abduct these women like away from him. So I think he definitely had trust issues because I feel like there's a certain instability factor here. And Mercury retrograde, he has Mercury retrograde natally, conjunct Venus and Uranus. And I just get the sense that, probably in his earlier years, he struggled with communication. He struggled with, um, you know, um, doing all the things, I guess, telling someone that he was interested or making the move, right? Um, I think that probably got easier a little bit as he got older, but really what I feel is probably as he got older, his trust issues became um, more and more kind of solidified. That's the feeling I'm getting intuitively here as I'm reading it. Um, so that was interesting to me. Mars also squares, his Venus and Mercury, which, a square between Mars and Venus is also tension. It's also challenging, which tells me again, he just had some issues kind of relating, I think, just relating. So, that's not to say that he wasn't involved with anybody. I just think that um there's a lot of different things I could say, but I think, for now, it suffices to just kind of say that you know, he loved, he was loved, it was unconventional, and I get the feeling also that if people tried to set him up with certain women, um, he would he would kind of push back a little bit. He would always go for. Um, I feel like he was really attracted to women who were just very, very different. From the type of women that I think everyone around him expected him to be with. He wasn't interested. I think he was just interested in like women who were uniquely different from everyone that he was around. But it's likely that he met them in environments that had to do with either his health, so health care, and we know Debbie Rowe kind of met him in that environment, um, or in the performing kind of sector, the performing arts, right? Music, musicianship, musicians, women who sing, okay? Or fans. We do know that he had some relationships with fans. So, they would show up in this sector of his chart as well because this is what he does on a daily basis. And it was music, right? Music is very Leo. Um, what else can I say here? Um, Yeah, and the fact that, Saturn squares his seventh house, which creates problems in relationships, but it trines his sixth house, which again tells me that he was interested in older women. I really feel that. I mean, you can go ahead and laugh at me, but I really feel like the women that he was interested in were older and or more mature. Okay. They had a gravity to them. I mean, he had an enormous gravity to him. So, just women who were more mature. Okay. Um, or very, very different. Okay. In some other way, different, not expected, not the typical sort of woman that people in his industry would expect him to be with. Okay. So, yeah. And, Saturn up here in his reputational kind of vocational sector is directly opposite his IC, which is the house of home, right? Which is the opposition is actually the hardest aspect to deal with in the chart. So if you have an opposition, it's very, very difficult. So this tells me that all of the challenges, all of the hard work that he did, especially as a child. But even, just the challenges with people in positions of authority in the industry and traveling and all of that kind of thing. Um, one of his biggest, I think, probably issues was the fact that, um, he was constantly living in different places. Now, you know, Neverland is an exception because he lived there for quite some time. And I think that, that place was like sanctuary and sacred to him. But especially in early life, when the eye see the angle that rules kind of the early kind of childhood environment, the house of home and family, being in Gemini. Gemini is ruled by Mercury. Well, Mercury is up here in his sixth house of daily work. Um, Mercury is the god of travel, and the fact that we can basically say that his home was constantly moving, right? Because Mercury is constantly moving. He's constantly adapting. He's the god of travel. He goes from place to place to place to place. So as he got older, this feeling of wanting to be stable and settled down um, got stronger, and there was probably a lot of frustration with not having, um, a place after he left Neverland. It was probably very bothersome to him on an internal level. So let's see. Yeah, and that's I would say that that's probably true. I mean, the moon up here is conjunct his ascendant, but at 14 degrees, and it squares his IC. So there were emotional issues here. He was very emotionally affected by not having a stable place, not having a stable home. I don't think he liked touring as a child. I don't think that he liked not being able to just have a normal life, and we know that things got like that again for him, um, again, shortly before he passed. So, so I think um, he was such a sensitive soul, and he wanted very normal things. He wanted very normal things that we all kind of take for granted. And that must have been very difficult for him, So, yeah. What else can I say here? Oh, yeah. So we'll say that too. Children. Children. So, one of the reasons why, and I will stand by this, I'm going to stand by this. One of the reasons why I don't think that he did any of what the grifters claim that he did is because his fifth house, right here, this little slice, his fifth house is in Cancer. The fifth house rules fun, it rules children, it rules art and creativity. It's also ruled by the moon. The moon is its ruler because it's in Cancer. Well, where do we see the moon? We see the moon over here in Pisces, in another water sign. And it has a trine aspect, okay? Trines are very harmonious, very, very harmonious. I think that his relationship with children was really coming from a good place. I think it was coming from the heart, you know. Um, Cancer is an extremely intuitive sign as well. Cancer is a water sign. Cancer is very domestic. It's very, it's ruled by the moon. It's very motherly. Now, this can be, um, I guess if you want to translate it to a man's chart, it's very um, fatherly. in a good fatherly way. Okay. Um, I think that the love that he had for children that he always spoke of was coming from a very, very pure place. I think one of the reasons why he did all of before he had his own children, one of the reasons why he did all of the hospital work and all of the, donations to children's charities is because he really genuinely meant it. He really wanted to help them. He felt their pain. Cancer is very empathic. Pisces is as well. But Pisces is more collective focused. Cancer is just domestic. It's very like, you know, um, right here, right now, home and family unit. Okay. There's a domestic kind of home and family feeling in his fifth house. I do not think that this man had bad intentions. I really don't. And I stand by that. And I will continue to stand by that because of what I see here. Okay. I think he was an excellent father. I think he was very, very caring, very, very caring, very caring. Um, and I guess on the topic of children, it's interesting. I mean, we all know that he did have like young kids at Neverland all the time. And he formed these relationships with younger, um, primarily boys who wanted to be like him and dance like him. Okay. Well, one of the things Leos are known for uh, is being great with children. People who are born Leos are typically, right? I mean, it depends on everybody's chart because every chart is different. But generally speaking, Leos are excellent parents. Cancers are usually excellent parents. But Leos have a natural gift for being with children. Leos have a lot of energy. They're a fire sign. They like to play. If you think of lions in the jungle, they like to roll around and play. They like to run. They like to have fun in the sun. And that's really kind of what I want people to keep in mind here. The sixth house also is the house, as I said before, of health. I really feel like children and his fifth house extends into Leo. Okay. Children for Michael Jackson were like um, therapy. Okay. They were like therapy. Um, children made him feel right in the world um, because of his Pluto Sun conjunction, everything that he had been through with his father, all the darkness and all the dark stuff that he had seen as a young child on tour. Um, Being with innocent children, I really feel was more like a therapy. Like I just that's the only way that I can say it. Like it helped him. It helped his health, his holistic health. And I think that he really enjoyed um, being with children because they made him feel his vitality. They made him feel um, like his real self, the real self, the self that never got to be expressed as a child because he never had a childhood. Okay. And with all these things down here, with all these planets and stuff down here in Leo, with a fifth house in Cancer and an IC angle in Gemini, he was robbed of his childhood. He never got to experience the nurturing. Okay. And we see that here. The child Persephone, of the mother, Ceres, was abducted. And where was Michael Jackson abducted to as a child? Work every day, work, performing every single day. And I'm not going to make any allegations here. So that's not what I'm doing, but it wouldn't surprise me if there had been attempts when he was a child, where people were either interested in or trying to kidnap him for, ransom or something. I just wouldn't be surprised if that was the case because of these placements down here. But, who knows? I mean, that's definitely not something that I think happened, but it wouldn't surprise me if it did. Okay. So he was abducted to the underworld, and the underworld for him was performing, actually. Even though he enjoyed it and he was good at it, it has this underworld kind of vibe to it. And that's where he was kidnapped to as a child. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, and going back to the thing I said in the first video about him being extremely psychically gifted, there's also another aspect that we can look to that kind of proves that. So not only is the moon in Pisces extremely intuitive, but if we look to his 8th house over here, his 8th house is trined by his moon, and the 8th house is also very metaphysical, right? People who do like mediumship and stuff like that have 8th house placements, and all kinds of psychic sort of experiences if you have stuff in the 8th house. And he has Neptune here, and Neptune at its highest vibration is like the shaman. So he was extremely psychically tuned in, and anyone, you can fight me on that. Like, I'm totally going to stand my ground on that. I think that he was more tuned in than probably what a lot of people were aware. And I feel like he made some very, very good decisions, particularly in work, but even in his personal life, that were informed by his clairvoyance or, psychic impressions or dreams. I think he, had he not become famous as a performer, it's pretty likely that he would have ended up in some kind of, practicing some kind of like esoteric spiritual art or something in some way, or at least utilizing that, in his daily life. But I think he did, I think there's even interviews or something where he talks about, I don't know, I can't remember what it is. He talks about something along those lines. But anyway, the other thing I wanted to say too was Jupiter up here, which is his fame, his megastardom in the 8th house, is also opposite his 1st house, which tells me that, with an opposition, again, oppositions are difficult. They're the most difficult, actually. He didn't like it. Okay. He didn't enjoy it. I know he was grateful, and I know he had this public persona that he was always trying to keep up and stuff like that, but I really don't think he enjoyed it. I think part of him did, on certain occasions, but I really feel like, especially as the years kind of wore on, it got really fucking old, you know? Um, so yeah, what else can I say here? I might end it pretty soon, but I wanted to do this just because I said that I would do a second part, and I'm going to do a third video. And in that video, I'm going to look at his natal chart, and I'm going to look at some conjunctions with transits and stuff like that. So if you're interested in video number 3, leave some comments under this video and let me know if there's any questions you'd like me to answer or anything that you would like me to go into a little bit further. And I would be happy to do so. All right. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.